Hi, welcome to Something to Offer. I'm Dawntoya Thomason. And on today's episode, I'm really excited because I have a very close friend who came all the way from Texas, broke out of the snow, broke out of the power outages and out of the water pipes bursting everywhere, and came to sit down to talk with me. And that's a really big deal. Her name is Ashley Kaminski. We've been friends for 11 years. And she has a powerful story, so much so that I actually did not plan to talk to her about what we talked about. So I made a bit of a faux pas, and I want to announce it before I even start. Originally, I had intended to talk about the concept of Black girl magic. This phrase was popularized in 2013 by a woman named CaShawn Thompson, and she saw this as a way to lift Black women up. She had seen a lot of stuff in the media. It was specifically around the time that a reporter said that Serena Williams looked like a man. And it was also a little bit after an article that had been written saying that Black women were scientifically the most unattractive, species person. And she was just kind of fed up. And so she tweeted out, this kind of concept. She had a whole tweet. I won't read the whole tweet. But in the end, it was saying that Black girls are magic. We aren't all these things that you say we are. We are magic, which became eventually Black girl magic. But over time, this movement sort of morphed into more about what Black women looked like. Our appearance is magical. Our hair is magical. But she always intended for it to be about us persevering despite what happens in the world, despite the adversity or the disparity. And I saw an interview of her that was actually really sad because she actually talked about as a darker skinned Black woman who at the time was divorced, a single mom, and looked a certain way, that Black girl magic eventually became something that squeaked her out of the picture, right? Which is a really sad thing. And so I just decided to change the angle. I wanted to talk about the concept of really how it's become too magical to be a Black girl. The standard's so high that your hair has to be a certain way. You have to have a beat face and all of these things. And I have a friend, Ashley Kaminski, that I really think personifies what it means to be a magical Black girl. Her hair is always perfect. Curls popping, or if it's straight, it's this, it's that. Makeup's great. Skincare is amazing, but I also think she's fun and jovial, and I just liked her spirit, and she always reminds me of what it means to be a magical Black girl. And yet, the more I think about Ashley, I think what's actually magical about her is what is beneath the magic. And it's the story, it's so multifaceted that we actually, I feel like, didn't even have enough time to cover it. But her personal story about being adopted and the fact that trauma still lives in her right now, all that she's been through, that she didn't actually acknowledge for a long time, but now she sees it in her parenting. Now she sees it in her marriage, and a way to communicate how to be a nuanced, magical Black woman when there's still pain and trauma in there that you haven't had a chance to heal from. And so we talk about, her parenting, my parenting. We talk about her marriage. We talk about her story of adoption and some of the pain there. And that does not take away, from her magic. And so I actually posted about her maybe a year ago, and it was a really popular post, for me and my followers, about her story of cutting her hair so that her daughter could identify with her. Ashley biologically is mixed race. Her adopted parents are Black. And so we just talk about all the confusion that's bred. She's married to a white man, and how she couldn't find her identity and is still working to be, this picture of magic. And so we just talk about the nuances of that, the complexity of the Black woman who is striving to represent this image, and yet who still very much has a lot of pain and healing to deal with. I never wanted this podcast to be perfect with a bow on it. And this is one of those conversations where I feel like it could keep going. So much so that Ashley and I are going to have a live after this airs for any questions. But I hope you are sensitive to her story. I hope that anybody who feels like they don't have it all together or that they have to uphold an image, that they can throw away the original intent or the morphed intent of Black Girl Magic, and that you can just be your magical self with all that adversity, with all that struggle, with all that beauty and everything mixed in. You still get to be who you are. And so Ashley and I are going to talk about that. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, as I said, my guest today is Ashley Kaminski, and I had a little bit of a faux pas with inviting her on this podcast. The original thought that I had, we've not totally veered away, but we've kind of veered away from it because that approach was shallow. The whole Black Girl Magic concept has changed over time to where it's become more about image instead of like the true thing that makes us magic. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I want to talk about. Ashley and I met like 11 years ago. Yeah. Longer? Or that's it?
Before Ryan and I were married. I mean, that's when...
That's when you got married?
Before we got married, yeah.
So our husbands knew each other in college. Yeah. And then we met because they started dating, and he was real excited about his new girlfriend. So he brought her around to meet the Thomasons. And I found out today, I didn't know this. You thought that I was what?
I was intimidated by you.
False.
There was a layer of intimidation because of my feelings, my insecurities. But I mean,
I'm older than you too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think also that for me, it was you were just like you were a fierce force.
Okay.
And I just sensed that. Okay. But then I also my insecurities of like, I don't know how she is, or I don't know, like I'm meeting all Ryan's friends. And it was just,
you want to be liked. It's not necessarily about me.
Yeah.
You want to be liked by your guys' friends. I remember when I met Adam's friends. Turns out they're all just dorks. But I really wanted them to like me. No, just kidding. You guys aren't dorks. If you're watching, they're probably not watching, so they're dorks. But you really want them to like you.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you want him to like you, and if his friends don't like you, that's a problem. But we met, and also at the time, Adam was a pastor.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like a pastor's wife, whatever that means.
And you were singing. You were leading worship.
I led worship.
Yeah.
And so for some reason in this...
And we already know that how much I wanted to be a singer.
Ashley wants to be a singer. We're going to work on this because I've known Ashley for 11 years and she's never mentioned this before. I just found this out. We're going to work on it. Tomorrow. Are you okay with that? No, come on, Ashley.
We can't have another Mariah Carey jam.
Okay, we'll work it out. Okay, so I met Ashley 11 years ago, and our friendship has grown tremendously. Mm-hmm. Ashley does not live in Atlanta, and she has flown in from Texas in the middle of really the cleanup from the Texas snow, like storm, everything. Everybody's seen this on the news that Texas had all of this cold weather, and their power was gone. Yeah. Hers wasn't. Yeah. But she, their pipes flooded, so she's actually in a rental right now and still hopped on a plane to come to Atlanta to do my podcast. Mm-hmm. And shout out to her husband Ryan, because Ashley got here Friday, was supposed to leave Monday, and she's staying until this Friday. Okay, so I mean that's like a mom's dream. And my husband's made fun of us because he's like, y'all are acting like teenagers. I mean, y'all, this is perfect. House party. She is the Sydney to my Shireen. And if you don't know what that is, go look it up. This is very powerful stuff that I'm introducing to you. But it's just been fun. It's felt like young, and so anyway, the whole thing was supposed to be, Black Girl Magic. The premise was, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, is that it's become too magical to be a Black girl. Mm-hmm. That was kind of the premise, I felt like, of course, I ain't even gonna front. I'm not gonna lie. Ashley and I are cute. You know what I mean?
Fine.
We've done okay. Middle school, I struggled. Elementary school. So I'm like, God has been like, here's a little just American cultural cuteness to get you by, because I did you wrong in middle school. That's what I think.
That's the truth.
So, and we aren't, well, you are, but I'm not cute every day. So that's why I say, hey, it's time, moms, we if we need to, we can get cute, right?
For sure.
And so I personally see Ashley as like the epitome of black girl magic. She loves to do makeup. She loves hair. She loves skincare. I benefited. You gave me a facial when you got here. And it was a good facial. Yeah. It's the only facial I've ever had.
The sad part about it is Adam's had a facial and you haven't.
That's true. But Adam is a 20 and I'm a 10. That's something that we've discovered in marriage. So it's fine. That makes sense. So, but superficially, I know Ashley's story, but I really just think about kind of her love for these things. And in the process of it being too hard to be like magical, I thought about Ashley. I wanted her to come on and do a live and talk about really just, why it's so effortless for her, why she loves this stuff. And she's the girl that you look on YouTube and, they give you the advice. And I was just going to kind of play with that story about how we took it from being like, Black excellence, women rising up, our stories not being out and about. And now this trend has come on the scene. And I thought that Ashley represented that beautifully. But I was really only thinking about the superficial side. Mm-hmm. And so we totally switched gears. Last minute, gears switch, because Ashley has, like most of us, a powerful but, tough story. And so really this episode, Beneath the Magic, is all of us. Mm-hmm. You're like the representative for today. Mm-hmm. But what it takes to get up every morning for a lot of Black women and put on a face is nuance.
Yeah.
And so I really want to talk about what's beneath Ashley's magic, because the other thing was just way too, I think, trivial for the life you've led. So are you okay with talking about some of this stuff?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about your childhood, like from 0 to about 3 or 4.
Okay.
And whatever you're comfortable telling. Okay. Just to paint the picture of, one, the nuance of being a Black woman. You actually are a biracial woman, right? Mm-hmm. And I see you as a Black woman. Yeah. One drop rule. Sorry, that's how I see it. But you were born to a white mother and a Black father.
And a Black father,
yeah. And tell me a little bit about that.
So I was born into an interracial family, and like you said, my mother was white and my father was Black, and they had 7 children, and I was the second to last in our family.
Were they married?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But so things happened in our lives where both my parents were addicts. We were living on the streets. We were in public housing, and they ended up losing custody of us because there was a lot of abuse, neglect going on, and so we were all separated. And so it was my younger sister and I that ended up going into a foster home in Pennsylvania, and then through just several years, we ended up being moved to Texas with my other sister, and so we ended up being adopted. But from 0 to 3 or 4, we were in the foster care system.
So when did you leave your mom's home? Like 3? Is it 3 or
yeah? Or I think it was between 3 and 4.
Okay.
I was 3, because I started kindergarten in a different school system in a different part of Pennsylvania is where I'm from.
Okay.
And it just from 0 to 3, I have very few memories, but the memories that I have were traumatic.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier about, how just small things like flashes of, in my memory of just like being, I was dropped out of a 2nd-story building by accident.
You remember that?
I vividly remember like falling into the pavement and the gravel, those like crystally rock white gravel pavements. And then they were just like.
Do you know why you fell out of you told me that before, but why do you know why you fell out the window? Or
nobody was watching us. Other people were being preoccupied, and my sister my older sister was watching us, and she was wanting us to just hang out the window, and she put my other 2 sisters in her lap, and I think we were called for, and so as she scooted back, she took my 2 sisters, but I was sitting in her lap, and so literally I just plummeted out of the 2nd-story building.
And even though you were only like 2, you remember, like you just vividly see.
I vividly remember the rocks coming, and I fell fat. Yeah. crazy.
Now that's far for a little kid. You're obviously okay, but like, did you go to the hospital, or was it like, man,
I don't remember. I just remember someone coming to scoop me up from the pavement, just crying and wailing, and then I don't remember anything after that.
Okay.
But it's, you know, like get these blips in times where you just remember. I remember no one being around, or not being able to have food, and I remember there was just a bowl of Fruit Loops on the kitchen counter, and I remember feeding my younger sister and I Fruit Loops, and it was just like spoiled warm milk that had been sitting there, and like to this day I can't eat Fruit Loops. My kids eat Fruit Loops, but I just can't eat Fruit Loops.
What's the sensation? It's just like a bad. If you somebody put Fruit Loops in front of you, it's just like, what is this?
I think it's just this trauma and everything that came with it afterwards, and just having that memory. It kind of pulls me back to just the sadness. The sadness for just all of my siblings and I.
So it's like you can't remember, but like something in your body, or it's just like it relates to something. But you can remember the Fruit Loops.
Oh, no, I do. I just remember. It's not like I remember a tangible feeling of feeling sad in that moment, but just for some reason I just remember feeding my younger sister and feeding me, and then that was it. That was it for the day. But yeah, it's just the sad trauma of it in general. And then I think even more so as I've gotten older and understood what happened to us.
That's the sadness.
Yeah, that's the sadness. That's the sadness.
If you had to, I'm sure you've seen pictures of her, like, you know, in older age, but can you remember your mom, like what she looked like when you were a little kid? Is that something that you can remember?
You know, I've had this question asked to me.
Really?
Because I've told my story. You know, I think for a long time I thought I had recovered from my story. So being adopted, or excuse me, at that from 0 to 4, I was in foster care, and I was with my sister. And I think there was some security in that. And then from 4 on, I mean, there was a trial, and my mother and father were both put in jail, in prison. So it was kind of like, you know, you just like the figurative, like the umbilical cord was cut, like there was no connection, the loss of connection.
Just did not talk to them or see them from then on.
From then on. So, someone asked me probably in the last couple of years, like, do you know what she looks like? And the only reason why I know what she looks like is because I have siblings that are in communication with her. But man, just when I did see that first picture, I probably was like 19 or 20. And I don't know, it's kind of like an outer body experience, because I'm connected to this woman, I'm connected to this man, and like not having like I knew their name, I knew where they were from, but not having this tangible like picture to like to grasp. And so when I saw them, it was strange, but had she walked around me, or I would have never known who she was.
Do you feel like you look like them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I do. I mix of both all of my siblings. We all look the same. We all kind of have the same look. My younger sister and I look very similar. So, it's crazy how genetics work. But we ended up. We still, my younger sister and my older sister and I were adopted together. But my older siblings, I've kept in communication with, and you know, I had one of my brothers came down. He's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, and he came down for a game, and we had spent some time together with him and his wife. And
do you keep up with? I mean, not keep up, but do you know where? Like, have you kept up with all of them, or do you have any contact with or is there like a couple that are just missing in action?
This is where I feel like this story gets sensitive to my spirit of because the trauma that we dealt with as children, you know, 7 children. Essentially being abandoned and then being taken, you know. I feel like as I got the words and I got the language to understand, I remember I was probably 15. That pain hit me, and I just remember feeling, I wasn't sad for myself, because I felt like, you know, I got adopted. I was adopted. I was raised with 2 of my siblings, and we lived a beautiful life in Texas, and I wasn't sad where I was. It was sad where I knew my siblings were, or the lack of opportunity they got, on top of dealing with the pain and not like living this robust childhood.
Yeah.
That's what I was sad about.
Yeah.
That's what it pains me a lot to this day to think about the struggle that they've gone through.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for me to push my feelings off and focus about them. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, there's something here. There's something underneath it that I need to, it's not healed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say, actually, that's like the reason why I wanted to have this Beneath the Magic podcast episode, just because what's interesting about Ashley is I feel like when I met you, not right away, but eventually I kind of knew this story, you know, this foster story. And then you were adopted by a black family. You know, people kind of act like black people don't adopt, but they do. You know, you have two black parents, you know, that live in Texas. And so you grew up as a black child, would you say? Like, I mean...
yeah, it's interesting because... So my first foster care, it was a white couple way out in the country, and then we moved to Texas, and it was a black family, a black couple, and just the circumstances, we ended up not being adopted. But just how the God was intertwined in all of this, we ended up in Texas, and I feel like I didn't identify with, you know, obviously having a white mother, and then being a part of a black family there was no like mystery of who I was, or this like trying to figure out who I am. I was just a black girl in their family with, you know, they have a son, or my brother is just like, it was just like a part of the family.
So they already had a son when you were adopted, and then at first it was your three sisters were adopted, and then one couldn't.
Yeah, so there were four sisters. There were four girls, and just the circumstances, just my older sister already feeling that attachment, that connection to my biological mother. She didn't want to be adopted. Understanding that now as an adult, but like back then I was like, we all could have been together. So
were you sad when she left, or do you remember?
I didn't build a relationship with her. I had a relationship with my younger sister, but it was just that we all could have been adopted. So my mother in Texas, she wanted to take us all in.
So I see Ashley, obviously this, you know, beautiful girl, and not just beautiful. Ashley has like a very not wild, but your personality is like,
I am. I'm toning it down.
This is subdued, Ashley, which is fine. You know, turn up, turn down. You're nuanced. You know what I'm saying? But she just has like a fun, crazy personality. And sometimes we assume about women, black women. You know, we give them the strength label or the whatever label. But I saw a girl at first. It came from a 2-parent home. And then you just make a bunch of assumptions.
Right.
That's why you must be so beautiful. That's why you must be so carefree. You know, that's why you must be so, you know, fill in the blank. But the truth is, you have a whole story that you have to get up every morning. And even though, you know, you can't speak for every black woman just like I can't. You can't speak for every adopted person or fostered person.
Right.
Just like, you know, you just can't
do that.
It's my story. It's your story.
Yeah.
But to get up every day and live your story, even the parts that you don't remember, that's in your body.
Yeah.
Somebody gives you Fruit Loops and you have a reaction, that's in your mind.
Yeah.
I have a Fruit Loop story from a childhood, but it's not dramatic. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I stopped eating them because I remember sitting in kindergarten and they were swimming and I left them too long, and all this sugar made a ring around the bowl, and it reminded me of a ring around the bathtub.
Oh.
So I was like, is this the Fruit Loops bath that I'm eating? And from then on, I'm like, I can't do it. I won't do it. You know, I got up and I was done with Fruit Loops. But, you know, that is not the same thing. So that's in your body that there's a reaction. We store these things. And so we'll talk about this a little bit later, but sometimes we only get on a camera, or we only get on a microphone after we've been through the healing, after we've been through the counseling. But you're actually at the beginning of your journey of realizing how much that affected you.
It did. And I really realized that when I became... I hit a wall with parenting, and
because you have a lot of kids.
I do not. I have 4 children. Okay, my husband and I, not just me. My husband and I have 4 children. And I didn't understand when I had my son, my oldest. I didn't understand this then, but looking back on it, I didn't connect with him. And now looking at it, there was this lack of connection on top of being married young. Yeah. And I mean, just the backstory behind, marriage in general, right? And then you bring this life into the situation and you have this idea, of what motherhood is going to look like. Yeah. And you have this fantasy of how you're going to be as a housewife and mom and the play dates and all that. Yeah. And I just remember being like, you are in the way of me, of what I'm supposed to be, right? But I love you. Yes. And but there was such a break in our connection. And then we had another child and just dealing, again, marriage, other things that were happening in our lives, that I wasn't able to sit down for a second and think about it, right? Yeah. And so we started working on your marriage. We started healing from, and you and Adam had a really big part in our lives in that. And then just the Lord working in our hearts individually, and doing our own work. And then in that, doing that solo work, the Lord just started to unravel things in me. And parenting was it's just been the echo of my heart, the cry of my heart, and just sitting back and saying, what happened? What I have 4 kids, and I'm supposed to
just do this.
I can't give them away, but it's just this. What do? And so just having that lack of connection with, and it kind of following with my other kids in different ways, I was just confronted with you are not doing a good job. But why? Why are you not doing a good job?
And you're just thinking, it's just because I'm a bad mom.
Yeah.
But you have these, and her kids are really young still, right? And, your oldest is
my oldest is 8.
8, right? That's really young. But she doesn't have the tools. It's coming now that you're seeing that, you weren't parented from 0. Yeah. To definitely these little ages.
Well, even that connecting age where you bond, where you, what's it called, imprint, when you really that child imprints on you. Yeah. And that one, that first one just set the stage for just so much. But again, not knowing how to deal with your trauma. And generational thing, my adoptive mom who loves us dearly and wanted the best for us, not dealing with her trauma and things that were passed on to me. And then just the trauma from being adopted and split in a fractured family.
And not actually connecting as a baby to your biological mom. And then, the framework, I'm not a counselor, so I can't speak to all this stuff, but sometimes we don't speak about things because we're embarrassed to say, I didn't connect to my first child.
For sure. Just in the same way, moms don't know they're going through depression. Yeah. And then, especially after having children, you're just I don't know why my body's acting like this. That's how it kind of led into parenting. Yeah.
And just to put my cards on the table so that somebody who's watching or listening isn't oh man, she's talking about this and I didn't connect to my first child or second child or whatever. I wasn't adopted, but I really struggled to connect to that first child because I felt like a fraud. You know what I mean? Yeah. I felt who am I to just up and have a baby?
Right.
Right. And, I tell a little bit of my story. I have a single mom and she did everything she could, poured her life out for us. And yet sometimes it wasn't always super lovey-dovey. I sometimes I was the only girl. I had 2 brothers, I'm in between 2 brothers that had a lot of issues from a young age. And so sometimes I just felt in the middle here, and I probably needed a little more affection than I got. And so I actually didn't really know how to turn that towards this new baby. Right. I just felt like a fraud. Yeah. And I'm not adopted. And I did have a mother who took me home from the hospital. And I'm sure she thought I was the cutest thing ever. But I just put my cards on the table to say that, I'm sure there's a lot of people, that's just not something you say out loud very often.
Yeah. It's hard to confront. It's hard to confront, to actually step into that freedom and then to deal with it, you know, on top of what you're dealing with just in the day-to-day life with the kids, you know?
Oh, yeah. Just someone always talking to you, always
wanting a million snacks a day.
Right. And also, your husband comes from, I would say, a stable. Yeah. We all have our stuff, but a stable 2-parent. Yes. Love him to death.
To death.
Just overloved. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to his parents. Overloved. You know what I mean? And so when you get together with someone like that, who obviously has their standards of what they think it means to love a kid, and then you have, not only do you have no connection with your biological family, but then your adoptive parents, like you said, just didn't deal with their trauma. And then I'm going to say this, and this is a stereotype, but I think it relates to our story. Black mothers, yours a different story. You were more like the Cosbys. Would you say?
We were called the Huxtables. Yeah, we're going to go. Yeah, for sure.
So you went from the extreme, and then I would say, obviously single parent, doing the best you can. That's not Cosby's, but there is still this underlying from the struggle of the Black woman from their childhood, their trauma, the abuse that they've seen, that they've felt. There's a little bit of a rage or an anger that sometimes, and I'm not speaking for your mother, that sometimes comes out in the way that you're parented. And so is it fair, I'm asking you, do you feel like you inherited a parenting style from your mother?
I did. I think I think it's one of those things that, I feel even like it's hard because I can't speak, because part of it is that, does she even know?
Yes, that's fine.
But at the same time, like, I know, I see my tendencies. I see like how I react and respond, or how I discipline. And then my husband, who came from a healthy family, who loved him to death. And how they are. Even when my mother-in-law comes, and I'm constantly like checking myself. I'm like, from day one, like, I don't do it like that, So it's hard. It's hard to just to see how that has affected me. And then in those years where I was like just so stubborn, and sometimes just blatantly, like, I feel being lazy, to do anything. And so then to actually be the Lord confronting my heart with, no, you will wound them. Like, you will trauma. There will be trauma in their life, but you need to fix this. You need. I want you to come to me, and I will help you fix this. I'll give you tools, because that's really what it came down to, is that I didn't feel like I had the tools.
Which most of us don't. But you really didn't have the tools, because you just don't have there's no roadmap for the journey that you've been on. Okay, so has it been recently that you realized that and I cannot say, y'all know moms, okay? We're hard on ourselves. So the struggles that you have in parenting, has it been recently that you think it's tied to just the chaos in your past? Or do you just want to know what it is? Like, what's the feeling you've been having? Because I personally, as a friend, feel like you'll say things like, I'm just, the struggle. And as a person who loves you and wants to have grace for you, I'm like, this is what it is. You know what I mean? So we all have things to work through.
Well, I definitely think life definitely takes you through a loop, and like having 4 kids is definitely not easy, but there was just like this inner voice that I just was shutting out, that I was just not, I didn't want to pay attention to it. I didn't want to confront it. And just through things through my marriage, and just being able to look back 10 years and be like, man, we've come a long way. I think in my heart I was confronted with, you can come a long way in parenting. You can connect. You can, And so I think that was I was almost kind of calling myself in my fraudness. I was just calling myself out. The Lord was calling me out.
Was the Lord calling you out?
I think He was. I think it was a soft, it was a whisper, it was the friend, the gentle, like, usher, and I think I just didn't want to hear it. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was being the mom. They were alive. They were fed. They were, all these things. And so, and then it was just everything that was going on with our family life. Obviously, you know, with us and everything that happened, you know, like the storm in Texas, everything that happens. But there was just like this deeper pull on my heart that it started happening a couple years ago. It was just like, I remember telling a friend, I was just like, I don't even know if I'll be able to tell my story because this pains me. This pains me to feel like this, that I'm the mom, I'm the mommy, you know, and these are my babies, and I'm just not raising them upright. I don't want to fracture their heart, and I think
this is not going to be good for me because I feel emotional because this is not what this podcast is for. I feel emotional because I want you. This is why I think we need the journey to get to the therapy, to be around friends and say things like out loud. You know, we all have our struggles with our kids, but Ashley is a good mother. I've been around you. But I want you to hear that you were just a baby who wasn't shepherded, who wasn't loved, like who was barely just kept alive and fed. You know what I mean? For a long time. And that's where I think the Lord actually wants to meet you. I think he wants you not to say to yourself that I could do better.
Right.
You need to talk about this. You need to kind of get in spaces where you can actually be affirmed. This is what's beneath the magic. And this is what I want her to see, and I want anybody out there to see. The miracle is, and magic is a word that is a supernatural happening that almost appears mysteriously out of nowhere. That's magic. Yeah. And the fact that an orphan can parent is magic. So I just want you to give yourself a little bit more grace. Oh my God, no! You know, so here, that's what I would say, because a lot of people, even though they weren't orphans, you know, we all have come from people that have their own stories and their own trauma, and sometimes you just don't get exactly what you need to do what you need to do. Yeah. And so I often think so many people. Because, you know, you're married to someone who has a certain way, but what husbands and wives can do to each other is they can say, like, you got to fix that because you're going to ruin. But I can guarantee you that when your kids get down the road, their story of you will look a little bit different than the story you have of yourself, or that even your husband has of yourself. Yeah. I do this test with my kids sometimes when I know I'm wilding in a sense. I go, we got to talk about this, like, on a scale of 1 to like, rate me. You know, and of course you can't ask them outright because they're going to be pleasers. They want to please you. Yeah. But sometimes when I actually, like, you have the floor, and I have a daughter that is my daughter, she will take the floor, right? And just the things that they bring up is actually not the things that I'm really, really wrestling with, you know? And I have a saying. It's probably a terrible saying, but I'm going to put on a shirt. It's a Dawntoya motto. And I've said this 1,000 times, you know it.
I know what you're saying.
You know, my kids are going to be in therapy because of me. I just want to be the first 15 minutes of the conversation and not the whole hour.
Not the whole hour. Right.
And the reason why I say that is because this job is too hard for it not to affect them. And you can be the quote unquote, what you think is a perfect parent, and they may go sit in that counselor's chair and say you smothered them. You know what I mean? Yeah. They may say, like, I'm unable to fend for myself because my mom did everything for me. Yeah. My point is that I think that I would love for you to see yourself more the way that God sees you. You know? Yeah. An orphan as well. Yeah. You know what I mean? An orphan who has magically, beneath all of this, you know, is someone that didn't have the tools and still needs a lot of tools. Yeah. You know? Not just to parent, but to actually, you know, stop making the voice of God the voice of your trauma. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, I just think his ways are higher than ours, and his voice is kinder than ours. Yeah. You know? It is. Okay, so the complexity, let's gather ourselves. Okay. Because I'm not trying to do all this, right? But I would also say, you have black parents, but, you know, adopted parents, you have a black biological father, white, but you see yourself as a black woman, you know, white mother, and then you married a white man, which is okay. And the only reason why I say that's not the shade of him. No, not at all. It's the complexity. When you start listening it down, it's like, okay, it's getting more nuanced. Yeah. And I see you as this magical woman, and it's only been recently that I've found out that you even have the way you describe yourself is not how I see you.
Wait, how would you describe me?
Well, sometimes you describe yourself as like, there's a suburban in Dallas, and you kind of describe yourself as like kind of a suburban, like, you know, mom of this town who is like reaching to be more of her like magical black self, but who has, because of the nuance of her life, you know, her mixed race, her black biological parents, white husband, you know, these pretty brown mixed up babies, you know, mixed race babies, you kind of like seem to struggle with like, you know, you see yourself differently. You make yourself sound like I'm in the suburbs and I got all this stuff. Yeah. But I see you and have seen you from day one as just this like proud black woman.
It's interesting because I think you say it well, because I think I don't know how to identify just being raised in a black family that were the Huxtables, knowing that, you know, from a very young age, because I even having conversations with my kids, you know, my son's like, are we black? You know, that like, I knew that at 4 of what I was. And so having that framework in my mind, and then knowing that I was adopted and knowing the trauma that I came from, it was just so, the door was wide open with the knowledge that I had of myself. And so then being thrusted into a world in a black family, in a white world, you know, growing up where I grew up. And so then just it was just this constant mirror, like I have to know who I am, but then like the mirror was just, you know, like, you know, murky and just foggy, and you lose yourself. And so then just to, I mean, man, you just lose yourself in so many other facets, you know, but like I feel like I just never was able to like know who I was.
But when I say this whole like, I see you as this magical black woman, you know, how do you see yourself right now today?
I think probably when I always try to like think of my marriage, of like, because I feel like my marriage just did something to me, and then just there were so many things that I learned about myself in my marriage, and I think that's when I started to crack. I started to unfold and peel these layers off of who I was. And then like the story of my daughter, you know, she went to, you know, we're in a pretty predominantly white area, and she's brown, beautiful, golden curls, and having this identity, even when I was younger, like, you know, I want my hair straight, you know, I want the straight bangs in 2nd grade, and I have to look like these girls because they, I don't know,
are around.
And that I didn't know that wasn't even like a language to me. Like that's the standard of, you know, the beauty that I'm supposed to look like. Right. But for some reason, I thought that was the thing. Yeah. And when she started going to preschool, she started to do the same thing that I was doing. She wanted to identify. She wanted her hair straight. She kept on. I mean, for months, she would. I want to straighten my hair. I want my hair straight. You know, it'd be wet, and then she'd be looking at the mirror and just be like, "This is how I want my hair to be." And then, you know, it just curls up, and it's beautiful though. And I remember constantly trying to point her there, right? And I wanted her to see her identity. I remember specifically, she one day was like, you know, my hair's like this now, but I mean, I've had tons of different styles.
I posted about this. I'll have to re-up it, but I posted this story of Ashley and her daughter, and some of you will remember because it was actually a pretty popular post of mine. I think it was your face. You had just gotten this haircut. You looked really beautiful. But she tells the story that before then you wore like faux locks. You didn't wear like just straight hair, but you had straight hair sometimes, flat ironed hair, faux locks, and your daughter, what she's saying is long, straight, not curly,
like hers. That you know, after the water and the moisturizer dries up, that like it just does its own thing.
So what did she say to you specifically?
And I just remember her specifically. And I'm trying to sit here and be like, baby, your hair is so beautiful. And so many, I mean, I remember putting people in front of her, like, tell her hair is beautiful, right? To give that to her. And I remember she looked at me one day and she was like, but your hair is straight. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks because I went back to that girl that was in second grade trying to have the straight bangs and the the straight brown hair and whatnot, and having my mom cut my bangs because that I wanted to be like that. And so I was like, this is it. I have to be the image for her, because she has to see herself. It's not like I would love to have straight hair. It's easy. It's manageable, but like it was for me. I wanted her to see herself. And
you went and cut off
all of
your hair.
All of it.
It was like this, but it was really short. You looked fantastic. You never looked better.
I love it. But you know me, I love hair in general. I like doing different things. And
it wasn't like you were trying to like.
No, it was for her. It was 100% for her. And I'll never forget when I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what kind of product I'm supposed to put in my hair. Like it's gonna be a whole different like chemistry class to like get this thing to work. And I'll never forget her coming she was on the bed with my husband and they were just watching a cartoon and she stood up on the bed and we're kind of like eye level and she was like, you do have curly hair. And it was just like a moment. I was just like, she sees me, but I hope she sees herself. And just how she is with her hair now is just like, she still wants it straight, but she's like, my hair is just so beautiful. She just really saw herself. And so,
and it wasn't like you were trying to like keep up with white America. You were just like, I like to be able to wear my hair straight. I like to wear my hair in a locks, like whatever. But then you realize, but she doesn't see herself at school, at church, and I'm the only real black woman in her life, and so I need to be the mirror for her.
Well, and just like me, I needed a mirror. I'll never forget like how much Alicia Keys was a mirror for me. And I remember she came out with her album when I was like 14 or 15, and like she was the mixed, the same background, white mother, black father. I was playing piano at the time, and so I was like, I am.
You nothing. You are Alicia Keys.
And I just remember I saw myself in her, and that was important to me. I did not realize how deeply that it was important to see somebody in my life that looked like me, that did things like me, and that was like I feel like again that was a small little layer that I was coming to find myself, but man, it was just so I was still buried deep underneath there, and it's not like I've completely taken off all the layers. I'm still unfolding. I'm still peeling off these things where I'm just like things have happened to me that I've had to
just be a certain way.
Be a certain way.
And that's why I stand. You read it too, but that Michelle Obama book, Becoming. Just in essence, like the story was amazing, but take away all of her life story. Just the concept of why she made it is like we always want to say our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be this. I want to be that. But the truth is, and we really know this when we get to about 30, 40 years old. You're not 40. I'm getting closer.
Not yet.
I'm close to 40. But you really start to see, like, you think, oh, I didn't get to be this, so I guess what is life? But you realize you're becoming. You have so many chances to do new things. You know, that's why I started this podcast. Like, whatever you do, you want to be an esthetician, which let me tell you, you're going to be good at it. Like, I think that's what I want Ashley to see, myself to see, anybody to see is like, the thing about you is you are magical. And I'm talking about what's beneath the magic and that we still need to do work. We still have trauma that we have to respect. All of us, she and I both, we just be saying stuff. I know I won't get into the details, but sometimes you're just telling your story and you'll throw something out and people are like, oh no, that's not normal. And I didn't have that happen to me, or that I didn't do that. You know, I might want to talk to somebody about that. You know, but that not just for Black people, but for a lot of people, we've made trauma almost normal. You know, and because we have to pick up and move on. You know, am I supposed to look like what I've been through?
I hope not.
It'd be tough out here. You know, and so that's really kind of what I wanted to shine a light on. It's like, it's okay to be becoming something, you know?
It is.
And I think your kids have gotten way more from you than what your story says that you could have given them, you know? And God bless your adoptive parents, your parents. I'm saying that to identify you guys, but your parents. and all their whatever mistakes they made, because they just make mistakes.
Yeah.
All of our parents,
They're doing their best.
They're doing their
best.
And yet it's too big of a job to not make mistakes. But in all of that, they've done a wonderful thing to give you what little tools you have.
Yeah.
And you just need more. I need more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just want people to know that there's always more to be had. But this episode is called Beneath the Magic. But I do need to take a second to say that, like, what I really want you to hear is that it's not just below the surface.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it is the mystery that you're able to get up every day and just put one foot in front of the other. To, come from brokenness and still fight for your marriage. Because marriage is hard. We made it. Somebody said today, marriage is not for the weak, and I said it ain't for the strong either. It's just a thing that is just it's just hard. You know what I mean?
It is.
They're the problem. We're the problem.
Yeah.
We're all the problem. Like, it's just hard for two people to become one family with two totally different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Right. And being white and black, it has its own issues, right?
Yeah.
But also being black and black from two, that's not going to solve anything.
Yeah.
Everybody has something that helps, and everybody has something that hinders.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage you that if you're wrestling with parenting, you're wrestling with your marriage, you're becoming something, and you don't have to be what you are. You know what I mean? And where you are is okay.
Yeah.
So and we're much harder on ourselves than I think the Lord is.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because if I can see you with good eyes, even though I'm not at your house every day, I imagine I'm just a woman, the sinful woman. I know that God sees you with better eyes. And so I wish this could be like a 2-part thing, because it's way, way, way too much.
We've had way, way too much fun this week.
Okay, so
much fun.
Part of the magic, I'm about to get real cute. You know what I mean? Like, I'm about to, actually, for the first time, and I know that y'all won't believe me, the women won't, but it's true. It took me to Ulta for the first time today. Is that like
And Dawn was aimlessly wandering through, like, this is so overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
What is this?
I want to, and back to the original point, it has become too hard to be like this magical black woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The founder of this whole thing never intended to isolate. It's not about beauty.
Yeah.
It's about what's underneath that magic that gets us up every day to raise kids when we haven't been raised, for the people to shepherd friends who, when this is not in our history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so for us to get up every day and make something of ourselves, she actually talks about why she started it as well, was because the final straw was seeing a writer say that Serena Williams looked like a man. And to be the greatest athlete in the world. And, and on top of that, in 2011, that article from Psychology Today that talked about how black women are scientifically the most unattractive women. How? Right? So my thing is like we for whatever reason, Malcolm X says, black women are the most disrespected people in America. For some reason, there's slavery, colonization, there's this beating down of black women. And so this woman, her intention was to raise women up. And so my faux pas was going to be to talk about Ashley's love for beauty and how it's difficult for me to go in Ulta and put me in a furniture store. I'm about to make everything beautiful. But, it's really difficult to keep up with this trend. And it's funny, the pressure, because let me be honest with you, Ashley combed my hair. It's cute, right? But
it's a thing. Her hair is a thing.
It's a thing. It's become a thing. Even, and don't feel bad if you did this, but even just doing this podcast, I did a video podcast because I've taken things from Instagram. So IGTV, that's the only way I'm probably going to watch something, or listen to a podcast. And so I thought, instead of doing a traditional podcast, I'll put on IGTV. But the moment my hair was popping, it's like, I'll be like telling a sad story about someone that died. People are like, I'm going to get back to your little podcast, but your hair is popping.
Fire.
And it becomes this like, I got to keep up this magical image,
Yeah.
And I wanted to just switch gears to Ashley to say, yeah, you're cute. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm real cute.
Yes, and confident. But that's not what makes you magical.
Yeah.
And I think I would love to have you back as you start counseling, as you start working through some of that stuff that's in your body about your foster adoption story.
Yeah.
And, and even the fact that living in between two worlds, because, she has her family that raised her. She has her family. And then you have all the siblings that were raised. And that's a difficult connection point. Your mother.
It's knee deep.
Yeah.
And I'm just now being able to just understand that it's not knee deep. It's eyeball deep.
Yeah.
And I'm just now being able to understand that I'm not breathing the right. I'm not surviving.
Yeah.
Like I'm not thriving, in life because of it sometimes.
Just because you just need to look back so that you can look forward.
Yeah.
But is it fair to say you didn't understand that you needed to look back? Did you think that affected you the way that it had? Did you know? Or did you just think that's just a part of life and I've moved forward?
I just think my personality was just like, the whole endure, like move on. And I don't even know if that was the thing that I didn't have that understanding, but it was just like, this is what's in front of you now. Mm-hmm. Like this is your new life and move forward in this. Right. Yes. But man, not dealing with it doesn't mean it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
So
I do want to talk to you when you started some more of the process.
Yeah.
And to see, and it's going to be a lot.
Oh, I mean, it took 10 years for my husband and I to get to this point in our marriage where we're like, man, we're thriving now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 30-something years of pain that I haven't dealt with. So for sure, I'll see you in 20 years on the podcast.
Hopefully the podcast is still going. Subscribe, like, comment. Maybe we can have Ashley back in 20 years to see. But it's a process.
It's a process. Yeah. That's all it means. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. What would you say to anybody? Maybe you don't think a lot of people, maybe you do have a story like yours, but maybe not the exact type of story, but people that haven't resolved things, but are trying to, raise kids, be married. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to say to them?
I think we ignore. For me, I ignore the small voice. Like, I ignore that whisper, and I think you don't want to be called out as a fraud. And so it's not. I don't think it's about being called out as fraud. It's call it to the light. Call it and then you deal with it. Like, and I don't know if that's just my personality, but like I just think it's. You can really thrive in your life, and I want to thrive in my relationship with my kids. I want to thrive in our family dynamic, and so I think for me it's just my advice would be just like don't let it go by the wayside. Like step into that and then gain freedom from that. No one can tell you you're a fraud if you've already said, I know I'm a fraud.
That's good. You always say announce it first.
Announce it first, and then deal with it, heal with it. Get those people around you. Really, like get those people around you that are going to be like, okay, I know you're struggling today, and help pick you up. Your community is big.
Well, I'm sad because IGTV only lets you have 60 minutes, but I could have talked to Ashley for like another hour. It just feels like there's too much. But I appreciate her coming on, and I do want to encourage anybody that needs to get therapy, get help, so that you can, become who you're supposed to be. But also, give yourself some grace. You're doing better than you think you are.
Thank you.
So, thank y'all for watching, and we may even do a live at some point because I think the conversation just could keep going. Are you down for that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.